Hello, everybody, and welcome to Andy and Iain Talk Networking. I am Andy.
And I'm Ian.
And Iain, today I think we should talk about kind of the elephant in the room. Is it always the network that's at fault? Okay, and this was actually one that came to us from one of our internal guys because he did tack team and was like, yeah, pulling my hair out, and it's not the network at fault. So let's kind of put some context around this. The network, let's face it, gets the butt of the deal here. Everybody blames the network, the switch, the services, everything else configured in it. But it isn't always the network. And observability, even though we talk about network observability, ultimately it's visibility of everything that's going on within your environment, not just the network. So I think perhaps let's just start there with, first of all, is it always the network? And I think we already know the answer to that one. But also then, how can we use our network observability tools to actually help us then dig into non-network related issues?
It's such a big question. And I was really excited to get sent this, as you said, by one of our team members. So definitely appreciate that. Please feel free to send in
Absolutely.
ideas, whether you're out there in the big bad world or you're, within cPacket for that matter. But yeah, I believe I'll put a stake in the ground and say it's not always the network. But the
Shocker.
network, the shock horror. Maybe I've just been doing networking for too long. But anyway, the funny thing is that it's really about, there's usually a lot of investment in security stuff. There's a lot of investment in the applications because often they're very visible
Yeah.
to a business, for example, and therefore the application gets that maybe a bigger wedge of the budget,
Yeah.
things like that. But I think that if you have a good visibility, observability, whatever you want to call it, you have to have a good strategy for monitoring key parts of the infrastructure. So you've got the WAN side, you've got critical middle boxes, firewalls, load balancers, whatever you're doing. And maybe you've got connections out to cloud, so you don't
Yeah.
end up with that kind of that kind of black hole of stuff disappearing out there. So if you just basically take your time, work with a vendor to be able to build out a visibility strategy, then you will be very quickly able to take the data that you get, looking at latency. Once again,
Yeah.
I think we spoke about this before and after a middle box as an example, right? Kind
Hmm.
of hop by hop latency. So you say, wow, something's weird happening with the load balancer. I'll
Yes.
blame the load
Yeah.
balancer. Or possibly the latencies are really, really good either side of the load balancer. But mysteriously, when it gets to the server, it disappears
Yes. Yeah.
for a few hundred milliseconds and then comes back, and you're like, well, hey,
What
look, my
happened? Yeah.
network is completely great. You can't blame me. This is clearly an application. Hey, did you upgrade that recently? Yeah, I changed the operating system, or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
rolled out a new revision, or I did this, or added this new feature, or whatever the story might be.
Yeah.
The bottom line is it's not always the network, but you as the network ops person needs to be prepared with graphs, possibly,
To prove
kind
it.
of
Yeah.
statistics. You've got to bring the evidence to be able to say, look, this is not me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the war room. I'm going to be working with you to get this resolved because I'm a team player, right? As network ops people are, right? There's some great
Yeah.
people working in network ops groups around the world that I've met over the years. So they're going to be there. They're going to be there in the war room working with the application team. But it's not always the sticky finger of suspicion pointing at the network, because you can very easily show using a range of timestamps, right? You're going to be timestamping your packets. We spoke about that in a previous episode. You're going to be looking at locations for latency, maybe bits that you've seen problems with before. Because if you're a network ops person, you know where there are going to be potential areas for concern because you're likely very experienced, and therefore you're going to say, well, actually, I know we've had issues here before, or we've maybe got two parallel links that are being load balanced between, for example.
Hmm.
So therefore, we've
Or
got to
between
be able to,
sites or
yeah,
multiple
all of this
locations.
stuff.
Yeah,
The point is, you know your infrastructure. Just make sure you're monitoring key areas
yeah,
across the entire system, and I think you will be able to very quickly either accept it is the network, shock horror,
absolutely. Yeah,
or
it happens.
it's more
Yeah,
likely something like an application or some other aspect or some other
yeah.
service that you've added into the system.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
we
it
had,
could be.
sorry.
I mean, yeah, and it could just as easily be that some external influence is having an effect on an application. Also, as you said, you may be, you're going through the load balancer and everything's great, but now all of a sudden this new latency's been introduced by a server, and that could be, it could be an attack that's going on that server. There could be some kind of a denial of service. It could be a DNS amplification or something like that. There could be a whole range of networking factors that are affecting the end application, but people are going to assume it's automatically the network, but actually it's an effect that's happening on the end application.
I've got a really great example for that actually, Andy. It just popped back into my mind of customer, kind of quite kind of a broad network, lots of kind of data center kind of models, and then kind of branch facilities. And they were connected back in, and the people weren't able to access particular records for this
Yeah,
organization. As it turned out, because they already had cPacket, lots of monitoring points through their infrastructure, so they'd already taken that investment goal. They had this issue. We were able to show it wasn't actually anything to do with the application that looked like it
mm-hmm.
was the problem. It was actually an authentication
Right,
system.
yeah,
So, kind of the not the easy bit. That sounds a bit of a kind of a dismissive way to say it, but something that wasn't really in line of focus, right?
sure.
Effectively, the people couldn't access the application. Therefore, it's either the network, most
Or the
likely,
application. Yeah,
or it's the application, not some side application
yeah,
that they were using to be able to do the auth, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's very common now in organizations. They're like, hey, we need an authentication
yeah,
strategy. We'll use insert here, whatever OAuth type model or some other kind of system.
mm-hmm.
And that was what this organization found, that actually that was the thing that was being
Yeah.
overloaded,
And they could be
not the actual
distributed anywhere in the network nowadays. That's one of the other things is, things like
anywhere
these.
anywhere in the world.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, some of these sort of like associated applications, because everything initially goes through that, like you say, they could be anywhere in the world. And if that goes offline, or you get some kind of a spanning tree problem where it's circling through and it's
Yeah.
generating huge quantities of traffic and basically taking half your network offline, you could be looking in completely the wrong place if you're not looking at all these different spots, in
Yeah.
all the different environments.
So fortunately for this particular customer, as I said, they had a cPacket broadly deployed across the network. So they were able to partner up with the team and say, look, this seems wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Let's work with the auth provider, change the capabilities of that service. Suddenly everything's coming back very quickly. Therefore, it now looks like everyone's a hero, the application's accessible,
Yeah.
etc., etc. So, that as I say, because well, I happen to know those guys, and they're really a great team. They'd be right there working with the app team, get that up and going, because they had and they'd taken the decision to invest in this case, a cPacket
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
cPacket deployment.
No, no, it's yeah, it's really interesting, and you're absolutely right. I mean, ultimately, the network does get the bad kind of, the implications. Everybody says, "Oh, the network's gone down." No,
Yeah,
quite often it is the application. If you've got the right tools in the right place and you're able to see exactly what's going on, you've got the analytics tools that are able to kind of visualize it and show you an end-to-end flow of what's going on. You can very clearly and very quickly identify whether or not it's a network or an application problem, and then
yeah,
shift your focus to resolving that accordingly. So I think, yeah, it's really important to kind of get that visibility as to what's exactly going on in the network, and like you say, timestamping, being able to put monitoring points throughout the network are really important to kind
yeah,
of root causing that.
yeah, absolutely. So the key thing to answer the original question is it's not always the network.
No, no, definitely not. Can be, but not always. Yeah.
We'll all hold our hands up when it's our fault, but it's not all the time.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
important.
That's great. No, good conversation. Thanks, Iain. Again, want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll have a new topic to talk about next week. And once again, if you like to hit the links below to like and subscribe, please provide us with comments and feedback. We love criticism, and we are more than happy to take requests for new content or new topics to discuss in the future. So once again, thank you everybody, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye for now.